Some divorces don't start with betrayal, but with one person falling into darkness and the other turning off the lights. Hey there today, I want to tell you a story about my life, about the woman I once loved more than myself, and about how I lost her little by little right there in our own home. This isn't a thriller, there's no obvious third party, but it haunts me every night, gnawing at me more than any other tragedy. How are you doing? Is work going well these days? I hope you're having a better day than I had all those years ago. I want to tell you because maybe somewhere out there are other men in my position watching their wives slowly sink without realizing it. Or worse, realizing it and doing nothing. I want my story, however painful, to be a warning to someone. It all started on the day both Chloe and I thought was the happiest of our lives. I still remember that fateful day, the day I uttered the words, "My wife is not the woman I love and I have been deceiving her throughout our marriage." It was in a softly lit therapy room in front of a stranger and in front of my own shattered self. I said those words not because there was a third party, not because I had betrayed her in the usual way of physical infidelity, but because I had betrayed Chloe's trust, betrayed my vow to be by her side no matter what. I had betrayed the love she had for me by leaving her alone in the darkness. My betrayal was indifference, neglect, the choice I made to turn my back when she needed me most. Just a few months before, our life had been an enviably perfect picture. I'm Leo, an architect on the rise with a stable position at a large design firm. Chloe was a talented marketing project manager, always full of energy and ideas. We met in college, fell in love as if destined, and married after 6 sweet years. Our small 2-story house in the suburbs was filled with laughter, cozy meals, and future plans meticulously detailed down to the smallest specifics. We had prepared everything meticulously for the arrival of our daughter. From researching the best hospital, buying every tiny item for the baby's room, the white wooden crib, the teddy bear-themed bedding, set the whimsical wall art, to reading dozens of books on newborn care. I even attended a prenatal class, learning how to change diapers fastest, swaddle properly for good sleep, and even how to effectively burp a baby. I was confident I was ready to be an exemplary father, an understanding husband, a solid pillar for my little family. I envisioned a complete life with a child's laughter and Chloe's warm embrace. And then the moment arrived. The cry of my daughter Luna echoed, breaking the tension in the delivery room. I stood there watching Chloe, exhausted on the bed, her hair soaked with sweat, but her eyes still sparkling with a happy smile as the nurse placed the baby in her arms. I gripped her hand tightly, feeling each weak beat of my heart synchronizing with hers. My eyes welled up and I whispered, "We did it, Chloe." In that moment, I thought it was the happiest moment of my life. A complete, overflowing happiness without a single blemish. Little did I know, it was precisely from that moment that Chloe's door to hell began to open slowly and silently. The first few days at the hospital, everything still felt like a dream. Little Luna, adorable, slept soundly in her bassinet, only waking when hungry. Chloe, though tired, still tried to breastfeed, her eyes full of love. I proudly showed off photos of my daughter to all my friends and colleagues. I told myself I was the luckiest man in the world, with an amazing wife and a tiny angel. I had no idea that happiness was just a thin facade about to shatter. Until we came home. Life with a newborn hit us like an unannounced storm. Luna's crying at night was relentless, restless sleep for only an hour or two at a time, constant feedings, mountains of dirty diapers, and the lingering smell of milk everywhere. I tried my best to help Chloe. I got up with her at night, I mixed formula, changed diapers, rocked the baby. I also did housework, cooked, did laundry, and cleaned endlessly. I thought I was being an amazing husband, a responsible father, a family man. I was proud of my sacrifice, of the sleepless nights, of how I was handling everything so Chloe could rest. But then I started noticing strange signs. Signs that at first I deliberately ignored, seeing them as inevitable consequences of childbirth. Chloe no longer smiled much. Her once radiant, vibrant smile was now just a faint curve at the corner of her lips, or completely gone. She spoke much less, her gaze often distant, unfocused, as if her mind was drifting somewhere far away. She didn't want to leave her room. Even when the sun was beautiful, I suggested taking Luna out for a little sunshine, but she just shook her head, saying she was tired, didn't want to move. At meals, she would only eat a few bites sometimes, leaving a whole bowl of hot rice I'd painstakingly prepared. Her body visibly thinned, her eye sockets dark from lack of sleep. Once I held Luna, trying to make her laugh. Luna giggled, making the sweetest sounds. I turned to look at Chloe, hoping for a shared smile, a proud glance. But she only looked at me with empty, emotionless eyes, as if the man standing before her, her child's father, was no longer the man she once loved. That look I can never forget. It was frighteningly cold and distant, sending shivers down my spine. I reassured myself. She's probably just tired, I thought. Everyone's exhausted after giving birth. Everything will be fine. That foolish self-reassurance, was the first brick laid in the wall separating me and her. I was too confident in my superficial understanding in what I read in books, forgetting that the human heart and soul are far more complex and each woman has her own postpartum battle. I refused to acknowledge the change. I was afraid to face a reality that wasn't what I had prepared for. "Are you okay, Chloe?" I asked, my voice filled with worry but deep down carrying a faint hope, a silent prayer. I wanted the answer to be yes. I needed the answer to be yes, so our life could maintain the happy facade I was so used to, so I wouldn't have to face things I didn't understand. Chloe just nodded faintly. "Just a little tired, honey." Her voice was a whisper so weak I had to lean in to hear clearly. She turned her face away as if she didn't want me to see her expression. I believed her, or rather I desperately wanted to believe her. I clung to that lie like a drowning man grasping at a straw, because if I didn't believe it, I'd have to confront a more terrifying truth. Why was the strong woman I loved, the woman who was once the sunshine in my life, shattering before my eyes and I couldn't do anything? The fear of facing something I couldn't understand, the fear of admitting my own powerlessness made me choose to ignore, to disregard the warning bells that were ringing. Chloe started avoiding our baby. Luna would cry at night, her piercing screams tearing through the quiet house. I'd quickly get up while Chloe would turn over, put on headphones, turn her back to the wall, trying to bury herself in sleep or pretending to sleep. She didn't look at our child, didn't move, as if those cries didn't exist, had nothing to do with her. I'd wake up to change diapers, make formula, rock Luna to sleep, thinking I was fulfilling my duties as a father, a husband. I was proud of my sacrifice, of the sleepless nights, of handling everything. I told myself if she's tired, I have to take on the burden for her, a man has to be strong. But I forgot one extremely important thing, a heartbreaking truth I only realized much later. Chloe didn't need a housekeeper. She didn't need a man who just fulfilled physical duties, who just changed diapers and made formula. She needed a husband, a partner who recognized that she was sinking, lost in her own labyrinth. She needed me to recognize the signs, the silent cries for help that she couldn't verbalize. She needed me to ask, "How are you feeling?" not, "Do you need me to do anything?" Chloe's emotional detachment wasn't limited to caring for our daughter. She started avoiding me too. No more spontaneous hugs when I came home from work. No more gentle caresses when we sat together on the sofa. No more small talk at the dinner table. No more endless conversations late into the night like when we first fell in love. She would often sit alone in her room, staring out the window with vacant eyes, sometimes just staring blankly into space. I tried to start conversations. She'd respond curtly, her eyes avoiding mine. I tried to touch her. She'd flinch as if I were a stranger, a threat. I felt pushed away, rejected, abandoned. My self-esteem felt deeply wounded. I had tried so hard, why was she treating me like this? And in my hurt, in my own selfishness, I quietly withdrew too. I didn't care. I told myself if she wants to be alone, then I'll leave her alone. I won't bother her anymore. I started seeking solace in my work, in late-night soccer games with friends, and meticulously cleaning the house. I filled the void with nameless tasks, meaningless activities, so I wouldn't have to face the real void growing between us. I thought she needed space. I thought she needed time. I thought I was doing the right thing by respecting her silence, by leaving her to herself. Little did I know that silence was a desperate scream that I was too foolish to hear, a scream that wanted to say, "Save me." One night, Luna's cries suddenly reached my ears. The cries were weaker than usual, like the whisper of suppressed pain, a plea. I jolted awake, intending to get up and comfort her as always. But then I realized those cries were no longer the cries of a hungry baby, but a low, choked sobbing from the next room. I tiptoed into our daughter's room. The dim nightlight illuminated the scene before me. Chloe was sitting by the bassinet, her back to me. Our baby was fast asleep. Her cries had stopped, but Chloe's shoulders were trembling uncontrollably. I heard muffled sobs, trying to hold them back but unable to. She held her head, her disheveled hair obscuring her face, as if the whole world was crumbling on her slender shoulders. My heart tightened. A cold sensation ran down my spine. An unnamed fear suddenly surged. This wasn't normal fatigue. This was something deeper, darker, an abyss I had never imagined. I approached, gently placing my hand on her shoulder. Her shoulders stiffened, trembling more. "Chloe, what's wrong?" I asked as softly as possible, afraid of breaking this fragile moment. She didn't turn around. Her voice was faint as a breeze through a crack in the door, so weak I had to strain to hear clearly. "I don't think I'm cut out to be a mother, Leo. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm scared of myself." That sentence was like a knife plunging straight into my heart. I panicked. Panicked because the truth was too raw and painful. Panicked because I didn't know what to do. What to say to soothe the pain tormenting her, to pull her out of the abyss I had only just dared to glimpse. I frantically, even desperately, tried to heal her with empty reassurances. "No, Chloe," You're amazing. You're the best mother Luna could have. You just need a little more sleep. Everything will be fine. I tried to cram sweet words, empty comforts into her ears, as if they could magically dispel the darkness engulfing her soul. I said what I thought she wanted to hear, what made me feel like I was still a good husband, not what she truly needed. I said the wrong thing, completely wrong, a fatal mistake. Instead of truly listening, instead of trying to understand the fear gnawing at her, I tried to deny it. I didn't ask deeper questions. Why do you think that? What are you feeling? What are you most afraid of about motherhood? Is there anything you want to share? I didn't learn about postpartum depression, about a cruel psychological illness that was slowly stealing my Chloe from me. I left her to fight an invisible monster alone, a monster that I was too indifferent to even recognize its existence, let alone fight alongside her. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside her, listening to her sobs gradually subside, then fall silent. I reassured myself that I had tried to comfort her, that she was better, but in reality, I was just escaping. I had let her sink deeper into the mire of loneliness and despair. I thought I was showing strength by not panicking, but in truth, I was showing weakness by not daring to face the truth. After that night, Chloe became even more withdrawn, like a snail completely retreating into its shell. She started to visibly avoid me. No more affectionate glances, no more hugs when I came home from work. The familiar gestures, the habits that had bound us together for so many years, now completely vanished. The two of us, once an inseparable unit, once vowed to overcome all storms together, now lived parallel lives like two ghosts in the same house. We ate at the same table, slept in the same room, but our hearts were thousands of miles apart. The atmosphere in the house was always heavy, filled only with frightening silence. My daughter Luna grew day by day. She started to roll over, crawl, then take her first wobbly steps. She was adorable and innocent, but Chloe rarely held her. She would just sit quietly sometimes, looking at our daughter, and tears would spontaneously fall for no reason, as if Luna was a burden proof of Chloe's failure. She no longer participated in Luna's activities like reading books, playing with toys, singing lullabies. Everything was handled by me or her grandmother, my mother. I realized that Luna was closer to me and my mother than to her own mom. It was an unspoken pain. And I no longer asked, "Are you okay?" I was afraid of the answer, afraid of facing the truth that I had failed, and that I no longer had the courage to pull her out of the darkness. I had turned off the lights exactly. I had left her to sink into the night, and I consciously turned my back to find my own light by justifying my selfishness. I told myself I was a victim too. It was also at this time, when family life became suffocatingly stagnant, that I began to seek other pleasures, outside escapes, to relieve the suffocation in my heart. At first it was just after-work beers with colleagues at sidewalk pubs, weekend soccer matches, until I forgot my way home. Gradually, I stayed later at the office, citing busy work with piled-up projects. I sought out all-night drinking sessions, hours-long pointless conversations, to fill the void in my heart, to escape the reality at home. I told myself I need to relieve stress too. I'm human after all. I can't endure this forever. Among those colleagues, there was a girl named Lai. Lai was a new architect at the company, young, dynamic, intelligent, and always full of energy. She was completely different from the current Chloe, a complete contrast. Lai always listened to me talk about my ambitious projects, my design ideas, the pressure at work, even trivial worries about life. She didn't judge, didn't demand, didn't complain. She simply listened sincerely and offered positive encouragement, fresh perspectives. Lai gave me the feeling of being understood, of being appreciated, something I had lacked for so long in my family life. Lai's presence was like a cool breeze blowing into my suffocating life. At first I just saw Lai as a friend, a colleague I could share work and a few casual conversations with. But then early morning coffees before work, late-night overtime sessions together in the empty office, conversations about life, dreams, the future began to fill my mind. Lai laughed a lot, a radiant, genuine, and vibrant laugh so different from Chloe's strained smile or vacant eyes. She praised my talent, my thoughtfulness, my goodness as a man. Those compliments, those admiring glances I hadn't received from Chloe in a long time. I felt like myself again, the confident and enthusiastic Leo I was before Luna was born. The relationship between Lai and me developed naturally, slowly but dangerously, and with inherent risks. From work conversations, we gradually transitioned to private lunches, messages, checking in after hours, phone calls lasting longer than expected. The initial encouragement and compliments turned into words of concern, deeper sharing of personal emotions. Once, after a big project, we had a small celebration, just the two of us. I had a bit too much to drink. In my drunken state, I told Lai about the struggles in my marriage, about Chloe's emotional distance, about my feelings of loneliness and abandonment. Lai listened to me intently, her eyes full of understanding. Then she gently placed her hand on mine, her gaze filled with sympathy. In that moment I felt an indescribable connection, a bond I thought I had lost forever. I knew this was wrong. I knew I was straying, crossing the line of a colleague relationship. Every time I saw a message from Lai, I felt guilty, felt like a traitor. But then when I got home, seeing Chloe still sitting silently in the dark, seeing the indifference in her eyes, seeing the ever-growing distance, I allowed myself an escape. Chloe doesn't need me, I told myself. She's pushing herself away. I have a right to be happy too, to find companionship and joy somewhere else. I allowed myself to be weak to justify my wrong actions. This was the second secret, a painful and shameful secret I had concealed. Not an immediate physical affair, but an emotional one. I had allowed another woman to fill the void that Chloe should have filled. I sought understanding from Lai instead of patiently trying to understand Chloe. I allowed myself to abandon emotional responsibility, allowed myself to seek light outside when my wife was sinking into darkness. And then the distance between Chloe and me grew wider and wider until it became an unfillable chasm. My daughter Luna was the only one who maintained her innocence in that gloomy house. She would babble, "Daddy, Mommy." Every time I held her, Luna would hug my neck tightly, her clear eyes looking at me like a god, like a hero. I felt a sharp pang in my heart. What kind of family was I building for her? A broken family, a lost mother and a father who was running from his own responsibilities, betraying the trust of her mother. I asked myself, could Luna feel the coldness engulfing this house? Would she grow up with the image of an emotionless mother and an indifferent father? Chloe rarely held Luna. She would just sit quietly, sometimes crying for no reason. And I no longer asked, "Are you okay?" I was afraid of the answer, afraid of facing the truth that I had failed and that I no longer had the courage to pull her out of the darkness. I had turned off the lights exactly. I had let her sink into the night, and I consciously turned my back to find my own light by justifying my selfishness. I told myself that I was also a victim. That morning I woke up with an unusual unease, a premonition of bad things spreading throughout my body. The early sunlight streamed through the window, but the room was inexplicably cold, unlike the usual warmth of a bedroom. The bed was empty. I turned. Chloe wasn't there. My heart skipped a beat, a feeling of fear rose within me. She usually didn't get up that early, especially these days. She even slept in until noon. I quickly went down to the kitchen, saw no sign of her. The living room was also empty, only rays of sunlight dancing on the wooden floor. Luna was still sleeping soundly in her bassinet, her breathing regular and peaceful. I ran into Chloe's study, where she often sat blankly for hours. I knew Chloe had a locked drawer in her desk where she kept important family documents. Normally she was very careful, but today the drawer was slightly ajar. A white gleam peeked from inside. Curious, I gently pulled the drawer open. Inside was a thin folder along with her phone she had left behind. I picked it up, and my eyes fixated on the bold black letters on the first page: divorce petition, uncontested. The whole world around me seemed to collapse. I froze. Not an apology note, but a completed divorce petition, Chloe's signature already there. Attached was a small handwritten note, Chloe's handwriting still slender but shakier than usual, as if she had struggled greatly to write these lines and perhaps had cried a lot while writing. I picked up the note, my hands trembling, my fingers clutching the edge of the paper. Reading each word, my heart felt squeezed, unable to breathe. "Leo, I'm sorry I had to do this. I've tried, but I'm slowly disappearing. I no longer recognize myself. And I know you've also found solace elsewhere with Lai. I saw your messages, those checking-in texts, those words of encouragement that I never received from you during all these months. My heart has been shattered for a long time, but seeing those messages, it felt crushed again. I think Luna will be better off without a mother like me and a father who no longer loves her mother. I'm sorry, Leo. Please sign this petition and let me go." Just a few lines, but it was like a death sentence cast upon me. Everything around seemed to freeze. The birds singing outside the window, the ticking of the clock, all vanished. I froze, horror engulfing me. A feeling of emptiness overwhelmed me, more intense than any pain I had ever known. It wasn't anger nor simple sadness. It was complete emptiness, a giant black hole devouring all my emotions, all my reason. I had truly lost her, and I knew I had pushed her away with my own hands. She knew. Chloe knew about Lai. It wasn't a hidden affair, but an emotional betrayal that had been exposed. I had been too complacent, too indifferent to realize that Chloe, even while sinking into darkness, was lucid enough to notice the change in me, to realize I was seeking comfort from another woman. Her pain was not just depression, but also the pain of betrayal, of being abandoned in her weakest moment. I immediately called her mother. Her grandma answered with a voice full of worry mixed with sobs. "Chloe came here last night. She only brought a small bag. She said she needed some time." I asked what was wrong and she just cried, but this morning she left and I don't know when. Hearing this, I felt numb. She had left the night before while I was sound asleep. She had held my daughter one last time, a desperate goodbye hug before leaving. And I, her husband, the one who swore to protect her, had slept soundly while she agonizingly made the most terrible decision of her life, the decision to end our marriage. I had let her go without knowing. I had let her walk into the darkness by herself after I had turned off the lights, and I didn't realize it until it was too late, until I found this cruel divorce petition. I wasn't angry, I just felt empty. So empty, I felt nothing, only a terrifying silence. I slumped to the floor, the divorce petition and handwritten note crumpled in my hands. My marriage was over. Not by a noisy argument, not by a physical betrayal I thought I could hide, but by silence, indifference, an exposed emotional affair, and a painful apology note along with a divorce petition. I immediately called the police. The phone rang for a long time, then a male police officer's voice came on. I tremblingly recounted everything about the divorce petition, about the handwritten note, about Chloe's unexplained disappearance. My voice cracked, broken by choked sobs. I didn't know where Chloe had gone, didn't know if she was okay. I only knew I had lost her, and I needed to find her, or at least know where she was. The police arrived shortly after. They listened to my story, took meticulous notes, and began their investigation. My family and I, with the help of the police, searched everywhere. From her grandma's house to her closest friends' homes, the coffee shops Chloe frequented, the parks she liked to stroll in. We went to all the places she might go, asking everyone, posting missing person alerts on social media. The whole city was like a giant maze, and Chloe seemed to vanish into thin air like a ghost. No trace, no phone call, no message. Chloe had completely disappeared, taking her pain and despair with her, leaving behind a cold divorce petition and the shattered heart of an indifferent husband. I never found her again. During those days of desperate searching, I almost collapsed. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, my mind constantly tormented by the question, where is Chloe? Is she okay? What have I done? That torment was even more terrifying than the pain. It was in my most desperate moment that a police officer assigned to Chloe's case, a middle-aged woman with understanding eyes, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Leo," she said gently, "we understand this is an extremely difficult time for you. You're going through a huge shock, and perhaps you need to talk to a professional. I can refer you to a good psychologist, someone who can help you deal with these emotions. This is nothing to be ashamed of. Sometimes we need help to better understand ourselves and what has happened." That offer at that time was like a life raft in a fierce storm. I agreed, and that's how I met Dr. Amelia, the psychologist I mentioned. The first appointment with Dr. Amelia took place in a cozy room. I recounted everything, and Dr. Amelia listened patiently. She explained that Chloe might have suffered from severe postpartum depression. Postpartum depression isn't just a little sad or normal fatigue. "Leo," Dr. Amelia said, her voice calm, "it's a real mental illness stemming from sudden hormonal changes after childbirth, social pressure, and prolonged sleep deprivation. People with postpartum depression can feel completely detached from themselves, from their child, even from their partner. They feel worthless, useless, and a burden. Especially when they feel abandoned, not understood, those feelings become even more severe." She added, "This is a fear that cannot be named. Fear of not being good enough, not loving the child enough, not being capable enough to be a mother. They hide their pain for fear of being judged, for fear of being seen as a bad mother. When they needed help the most, they were abandoned or worse, betrayed, like you seeking comfort from others when she was at her weakest. You didn't see or didn't dare to see, and then you pushed her further away with your own hands." Every word from Dr. Amelia was like a hammer blow to my mind. I had missed dozens of opportunities to understand and be there for Chloe. I was too preoccupied with feeling sorry for myself, with seeking comfort from outside, that I forgot the woman I loved was sinking into darkness. I had failed in my role as a husband, a partner. A terrifying secret was also unveiled. My indifference was a form of betrayal, even more frightening than physical infidelity. I didn't just betray Chloe with my apathy, with my ignorance, and with my own fear of confronting her pain. I also betrayed her by seeking comfort from lie, by allowing myself to take a different path when she needed me most. I didn't choose to stay. I chose to leave within my own home, building an invisible wall between us, and then pushed her to the deepest abyss of despair when she found out I had sought out someone else. Dr. Amelia didn't reproach me. She simply said, "No one is perfect, Leo. What matters is that you've realized that you've dared to face the truth, however late. But remember, some wounds, no matter how hard you try, will never heal completely, and some losses can never be compensated for." I left the therapy room with a heavy heart. My heart ached not from loss, but from profound regret from what I had caused. regret for what I had done, or more importantly, what I had failed to do. The curtain of secrets had been lifted, and the naked truth, though painful, offered me no glimmer of hope of finding Chloe again. It was merely a path to atonement, a path I would have to walk alone in endless torment. I am still living with profound regret with the question, where is Chloe now? Is she okay? Haunting me every day? Luna, my daughter is a little older now, still asks about her mother, still waits for her to come home. I can only hold her close, trying to make up for what she has lost, what I deprived her of. I live each day with the gnawing pain that I left her alone in the darkness, and she chose to free herself by disappearing without a word of farewell, without a chance for me to make amends. Because some divorces don't start with simple reasons, but with one person falling into darkness, and the other turning off the lights, then seeking light elsewhere, ultimately pushing the marriage to the brink and the spouse to a dead end. Don't let my story become your story. Love and understand before it's too late, before you lose the most precious things in your life forever. Thank you all so much for listening to my painful and regretful story. I know it's not a beautiful fairy tale, but a tragedy of indifference and wrong choices. I hope that from my mistakes, from the pain I have endured, you can gain something valuable for yourselves. If you found this story meaningful, please take a moment to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts or your own story. If you've experienced something similar, or if you have loved ones facing issues like Chloe. Every share, every story is a wake-up call, helping those who are lost find their way, helping us feel less alone in our battles. Don't forget to share this video with those you think need to hear it. Perhaps someone out there desperately needs this warning, needs a wake-up call to realize the value of understanding and sincere love before it's too late, before they lose the chance to save a life, a family. And if you want to support the channel, want to hear more emotional, meaningful stories and other life lessons, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a huge motivation for me to continue sharing true stories from life stories that can touch hearts and change lives. Thank you all very much.